Good Yom Tov, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen, Rav Shmuel, Rashbi, yes, Rav Shmuel ben Yehoshua. So, good Yom Tov. We are observing Shavuot in about a week. Shavuot, and it's interesting how we say good Yom Tov. Now, Yom Tov is kind of an Ashkenazi Hebrew way of saying Yom Tov. Yom Tov means literally good day. So when you're saying good Yom Tov, you're saying good day. But that's how that's is our greeting for the holidays, for the festivals. And it is a good day because it's one of the festivals. Shavuot is one of the three pilgrimage festivals. And in fact, one of our Torah readings, and we'll get to that in a minute, discusses that. But Shavuot is a very special holiday. It is marked exclusively differently than the other holidays are because the other holidays have a Hebrew date. When do we observe Passover? On the 15th of Nisan. When do we observe Rosh Hashanah? On the 1st of Tishrei. When do we observe Yom Kippur? The 10th of Tishrei, Sukkot, the 15th, etc. Even though Shavuot is observed either on the 5th or the 6th of the month of Sivan, depending on the year. Sometimes the previous month has 29 or 30 days, depending on the year. Even though it is observed on that day, we arrive at Shavuot by counting out the 49, 50 days of the Omer. So we have Passover, Pesach, on the 15th of Nisan, and the second night of Passover, of course, is the first day of the Omer, and then the second, etc. And then when we've counted out 7 weeks, and this is part of the commandment to observe Shavuot, we are commanded to count out the 7 weeks and come to the feast of Pentecost. Pentecost is I guess it's the Greek or the Latin way of saying 50, and that's when we arrive at Shavuot. So Shavuot is marked by the fact of two things again. Once again, as a pilgrimage festival, it has the duality of being an agricultural holiday, which is the summer harvest, and it also is the day when Moses came down with the Ten Commandments. So it is appropriate that the special Torah portion that we read for this particular festival is in Exodus, and it is when Moses comes down with the Ten Commandments. And I think we all kind of know what portion it is. It's the portion of Yithro. It's when Yithro, who is the father-in-law of Moses, comes to Moses and said, "Wow, I heard what you did. It was wonderful, and I see that your God is the God of all gods. He's the God of the universe, and we're kind of turning over a new leaf." And the Midianites were pagans at this point. Jethro was a Kohan. He's described in the Torah as a Kohen, as a priest of Midian. So he was a priest of a pagan religion, but seeing what miracles God wrought for the Israelites as Moses came into Egypt and redeemed our people, he has now said, you know what, I've been doing it wrong. Now I'm going to do it right. Of course, then he talks to Moses and said, what are you doing with all these people? You're going to be here forever. Why don't you delegate? And the next chapter is when Moses is going up to Mount Sinai to get the Ten Commandments. So it is appropriate that for the day of Shavuot, for when we observe that festival, that is the Torah reading in Exodus. So at first, God says, I want everybody to prepare. And the Israelites, the children of Israel, say, we will do and we will hear. They are committing to accepting the covenant of the commandments upon themselves, even before they hear what it is. We will do and we will hear. Moses tells them to prepare themselves. Everybody's going to be pure. Yes, they are supposed to be abstinent, the priests especially. And gosh, wait a minute. Priests, where do priests come from? There are no priests. Well, this is it's interesting how the Torah does things because we kind of flash back and forward all the time. If you remember when we have the golden calf, right? It's when Moses is coming down from Mount Sinai and he has the Ten Commandments. He sees the golden calf that the people have made as a symbol of him because he was gone 40 days and they miscounted the days, didn't think he was coming back, smashes the Ten Commandments that he has because they were engaging in idolatry. Yet they hadn't gotten the Ten Commandments yet. Isn't it interesting that in the portions in the chapters after Moshe Rabbeinu comes down with the tablets that contain the Ten Commandments or the 10 words as they're described in the Torah, and then it talks about other commandments in the next portion, which is Mishpatim, talks about slavery, talks about eye for eye, and which we know is just financial compensation. You cause somebody to lose their eye, you don't get your eye poked out. You compensate them financially based on what money they would have lost. And then after a few portions, then it goes back to Moses coming down and the incident with the golden calf. So the Torah is not necessarily in chronological order. It's in historical order. The Torah has an order all to itself. So when we talk about priests, we're talking really kind of a flash forward in a way. The fact that we're talking really about the elders. Because yes, there were elders in Israel, even in Egypt. There were the wise people that kind of maintained the tradition. Now, there wasn't really much of a tradition back then, but they still maintained it. So they were at the foot of Mount Sinai. Then there was Aaron. Then Joshua was halfway up the mountain. And then Moses went up to Mount Sinai, and that's where he communed with God for 40 days and 40 nights. He didn't eat, he didn't drink, which, by the way, is where we get the tradition that if you happen to drop a Torah scroll, heaven forbid, Hashem forbid, then you fast 40 days and 40 nights. Now, it doesn't have to be all at once, okay? And I believe it's a minor fast, but that's we get that from here. So Moses comes down with the Decalogue, which is the Greek name for the Ten Commandments, and he tells the people this is the beginning of God's commandments. Now, a young student asked me once if all the other commandments, the other 603 commandments, come from the 10. And I said, yes, I believe they do. Because what are those 10 commandments? I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no gods before you. Do not make any molten images. Remember the Shabbat. And in this case, in Exodus, it's Zachor. Remember. When it's repeated in Deuteronomy, it's Shamor, which is guard or keep. Okay? That's why we say Shamor v'Zachor. It's why we light 2 candles on Shabbat. Shamor v'Zachor, or Zachor v'Shamor if you want to. It's why we say in Lahadodi, Shamor v'Zachor. The 5th commandment, honor thy father and thy mother. Then we have do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not covet, and do not bear false witness. And I might have those last 2 confused. So those are the 10 commandments. And that's what we read on Shavuot. Now, on the second day of Shavuot, we go to Deuteronomy, and it's a very short portion. And remember, on the festivals, there's only 5 aliyot. And the Talmud says that, heaven forbid, we do more than 5 aliyot on a festival, that somebody walks into a synagogue and says, well, you're doing more than 5 aliyot, you're doing 6 or 7, must be Shabbat. So that's why we don't do that. So on the second day of Shavuot, we have, first of all, the discussion about the dedicating the firstborn. And Bikurim, which is the word for firstborn in Hebrew, the first. And this goes with the first fruits, which is because, after all, Shavuot coincides with the summer harvest, which is your first harvest, right? It's when you're getting all your fruits that come early, maybe the grain. And, of course, the Omer, which is really the barley. And barley is the very first grain that ripens. And it's not such a great grain. It's really given to animals. But, personally, I kind of like barley. I do. Barley soup is good. So we have the consecration of the firstborn in Deuteronomy, and then we have a kind of a recap of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, and then counting down the 50 days to Shavuot, and then which is the festival of your tabernacle, and then you have the Sukkot, which is your festival of booths, So that's kind of how the portions go on Shavuot. We will be doing a evening service as well. We'll be doing it just on Zoom. We may or may not, I don't know yet, read the book of Ruth, which is traditionally read on Shavuot because Ruth becomes friends, not just a relationship with her mother in law, but also becomes friends with her. Whither thou goest, I shall go. Your people shall be my people. It's a beautiful story. And also because she was, she converts to Judaism and she becomes the matriarch, the ancestor of King David. So there's a relationship. All right, so looking forward to seeing you on Shavuot. Hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for listening.